Hello and welcome to a Hump Day episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you already know you can call me VB. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comments section. You know, we enjoy watching you guys interact, seeing some of your thoughts on what's going on the program, and then getting the chance to interact with you down in the comment section as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Now we are almost in the middle of September. The preseason is on its way. Training camp right around the corner. That means basketball is not too far off, ladies and gentlemen. And with training camp being so close, it's time to start preparing for some questions and some expectations to be answered and coming out of training camp. We'll talk about the three of the bigger questions going into training camp for the Charlotte Hornets today on the show. And it seems like Charles Lee is in a very good place. He's very content, very happy with his current roster makeup. We'll discuss what that could mean for the Hornets going forward this season as well. And we're going to use one word to describe the Hornets' expectations for the upcoming season. I'll tell you what one writer thinks that word should be going into this season. And then we're going to wrap the program up today with a little bit of love on Musa Diabate. It's come out in more recent days. As you know, we've talked about it a lot, that the Hornets do have some confidence in his abilities to be a starter in this league, especially at the center position. There's some more evidence to back that up. We'll talk a little bit about that to wrap the show up today. Now, you know, one thing we don't do here on Hornets Daily is beat around the bush. We like to dive head first right into the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now, it's been a theme the last few days, especially this week on the show. Training camp is on the way. It will commence at the end of this month and the beginning of October. Not far away, just a couple weeks now. So we're getting ready with some questions, some expectations. What should we see coming out of camp for the Hornets? As I mentioned, we're just a few weeks away from the start of training camp. It'll be our first chance to see these young guys, these promising young rookies, interact with some of the veterans that are already in the building and some of the new veterans that have been brought in, see how they mesh together, who clicks the best on the floor. Training camp will also provide some clarity for who is going to start at what position and how this roster will unfold, how Charles Lee will start to build his rotation. Zach Roberts over at Sports Illustrated thinks that this will be an important camp for the Hornets, and he has three prominent questions that he would like to see answered coming out of training camp into the preseason and into the regular season. Those questions are: who will start at center, who will start at the wing, and who will get cut. Now, obviously, two or three of those questions, really all three of them, are questions we've asked, things we've been wondering about all offseason long, but now coming into training camp, we should get some proof, some answers. We should get to see with our own eyes exactly what that's going to look like on the floor. Now, the first question, who's going to start at the wing? That's been up in the air all offseason. It's still one of the more intriguing questions surrounding this Hornets roster going into this season. Now, we know three of the starters are pretty much, or all but guaranteed. They are guaranteed. LaMelo at the point guard position, Miles Bridges at the power forward position. Those two are locked down at a specific position. Brandon Miller is the guaranteed third starter, but exactly where is still up in the air as well. If Brandon Miller starts at the 2, or if Charles Lee decides to start Con Knipple, then that will put Brandon Miller at the 2, making Con the starter on the wing. However, if it does not go that way, if it goes the way I tend to think it might, at least early on, and Colin Sexton wins the starting role, then that will move Brandon Miller down to the 3, have Colin Sexton and LaMelo Ball in the backcourt at the 1 and the 2. So that will be, again, those are questions that'll be answered. Who is Charles Lee going to be leaning towards? Who's he going to start at that 3? I tend to think that it'll be Brandon Miller there with Sexton at the 2 just because he's a little more proven. That'll give Con a little more time to develop coming off the bench and kind of figure out the NBA. We did see, despite all the promise with him, he needed a little bit of time to adjust in the summer league, and if that's the case in the regular season, it may behoove him to do that adjustment period as he comes off of the bench. So that'll be something for Charles Lee to keep an eye on. That'll be something for us to watch as Hornets fans, see what decision he makes coming out of camp at the wing. Second question, who is going to start at center? Now, that has been the big question all summer long. We've talked at length, ad nauseum on the program about the lack of depth at the Hornets center position, about how they didn't go out and make a flashy move or try and bring in another guy at the center position. No disrespect to Mason Plumlee, but you all know what I mean. That, again, we all know here that I am in favor of having Musa Diabate start at the center position, which is what it is starting to look like is going to happen. But again, you guys know I'm in favor of that. I think he has a lot of promise. I'm very high on his upside and his ability to change his offensive game here in the league. Now, despite whoever it is that runs out as the starter, whoever's written down and in the starting position on opening night, it will more than likely mean all three of the guys currently on the roster have to play useful and impactful minutes. Mason Plumlee, Musa Diabate, Ryan Kalkbrenner, all three of them are going to be put into the rotation in some form or fashion and going to be asked to play productive minutes throughout the season. So to me, in terms of more importantly than answering who's going to be the starter at the center, is going to be, can Ryan Kalkbrenner use this training camp time to show he's got what it takes to play in the NBA early on in his career. He's going to have to show Charles Lee that he can take advantage of the minutes he gets and capitalize on them as he continues to grow and develop into an NBA center. We know he can shoot the ball a little bit. Can he develop into a little bit better of a perimeter shooter? That's going to be important. We know he's been given permission to let it fly if he is standing wide open or has a shot that he likes. We know he is a proven defender, the Big East Defensive Player of the Year last year, a 7-footer who is a rim protector and adds a real presence in the paint. But can he do it with authority? Can he do it with less timidness than we've seen in the summer league and in the offseason a little bit? Can Kalkbrenner dominate that paint? Will be a big question in coming out of training camp. So again, as I don't know that it's necessarily as important who's going to be the starter, but will Charles Lee and company believe in Ryan Kalkbrenner when he is necessary? Because realistically, as we've talked about, we can't expect too much from Mason Plumlee. Productive minutes, competent minutes, sure, but an abundance of them I think would be a bit naive to expect out of Mason Plumlee. So it is going to be important for Kalkbrenner to develop and show growth and prove to Charles Lee and the rest of the staff that he is going to be able to play some impactful minutes early in his rookie year. Now, the third question, that's one we haven't really talked about in a while, but we spoke about it a bunch this summer, and then we knew that coming into training camp, this was going to be these guys' final audition. Who's going to get cut? Who are going to be the three players that the Hornets have to move on from? As just a quick reminder, as we know, the Hornets still currently sit with 18 players on the roster and have to get that number down to 15 before the regular season gets underway. Now, camp will be the last chance for these bubble guys to prove their worth, prove their spot, to fit into the rotation, and show Charles Lee that they should not be moved on from, but can in fact help this organization going forwards. Now, we know we've talked about this all summer. We know the most likely options are Daquan Jeffries, Pat Connaughton, and Nick Smith Jr. There's some other names on the list, i.e. Josh Green, and a few other guys, but those first three that I mentioned are the most favorable options to be moved on from before the start of the regular season. Daquan Jeffries is probably the most certain of the three that's going to be cut, waived, moved, whatever it may be. Daquan is his contract yet to be guaranteed by the Hornets, and it does not seem like that's something they're going to do before the regular season, but he too will get that chance in camp to prove them wrong. Pat Connaughton, it just makes sense for him to be a buyout, an older guy, older veteran, doesn't really have a spot in the future for the Hornets, but he can be of use if they decide to keep him. He's a proven shooter. We know he can play defense, and he has a championship ring, so he knows what it's like to win in the NBA. So if he is kept, there's certainly things he can do, usefulness he can provide to the Hornets, but it does right now seem like he will be one of the three guys on the way out. And Nick Smith Jr. is also still one of the front runners. You guys have heard my theory about maybe somehow the Hornets find a way to keep him around. Starting to seem like I was wrong about that, but if he shows up in training camp, has a good showing, gives the Hornets a reason not to move on from him, then it could be somebody like the Josh Green that I mentioned before. But right now, the leaders in the clubhouse are Nick Smith Jr., Daquan Jeffries, Pat Connaughton. And again, nothing necessarily wrong with any of those guys, just don't really fit this Hornets roster. And there is an abundance of players. Cuts have to be made. That is just the name of the game. So unless one of those three or all of those three, whatever it may be, can show Charles Lee something crazy that makes him think they belong on the roster, they need to be on the spot. Those are the three heavy favorites. Now, camp is an exciting time. It means basketball is very close by, as we have talked about. But this year, it's not all just fun and getting ready and getting excited. There are real things that need to be taken care of. There's questions that need to be answered. This is a vital training camp for the Hornets as they propel themselves into the 25-26 season. Coach Charles Lee and company have an important task to take care of at the end of September and the beginning of October before preseason gets underway. Speaking of Coach Charles Lee, we know he is in a better place. Not that he was in a bad place, but he's in a very good place coming into this training camp, coming out of the offseason with the roster makeup, with the additions that have been made, and the front office moves that Jeff Peterson and company were able to make this offseason to build this roster up and improve and get better going forward. Now, we know we just talked about it. He's still got to trim some of the fat, but Charles Lee does appear to be in a much better spot with his year 2 roster than he was in year 1. We all remember the Hornets' shooting woes from last year, one of the bottom teams in the NBA in terms of shooting the basketball, whether it be from mid-range, three-point, whatever that is. The Hornets just were not good as a shooting team last year, and that is counterproductive to Charles Lee's offensive strategy. We know he is a three-point heavy offensive-minded coach. We know he likes to have his guys shoot from beyond the arc, and the Hornets did that a lot last year. It's just that they did not make them. That's what's going to have to change for Charles Lee and company going into this year. He started out a little bit behind the 8 ball from the jump last year, especially with the injuries to Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball coming so early in the year. Trey Mann coming out like a man shot out of a cannon, but going down just 13 games into the season. So Lee was dealt an unlucky hand of cards last year for sure. Things have changed and seem to be a little bit different going into this season, which is also a very beneficial thing for the coach and the rest of the staff. The priority, obviously, this summer was bringing in guys who better fit Lee's offensive system, which, again, is to shoot the three and go from there. And players like Spencer Dinwiddie, Colin Sexton, Pat Connaughton, again, who may or may not be here, but he is a deadly three-point shooter, have all been added. We've drafted Con Knipple, Liam McNeely. Those guys can shoot. Sion James is a good shooter when he is asked to do so. And Ryan Kalkbrenner also possesses the ability to step out and knock down the three-point ball. Brandon Miller returning should increase the shooting percentage for this team as well. So there's a lot that goes into improving this team, getting guys back, as well as developing the younger, more newer additions to this Charlotte Hornets team. Now, Charles Lee, Jeff Peterson, they made moves to set up the Hornets in a lot better position should one of their stars go down with an injury. We know that was a massive deal last year, but again, as I mentioned, guys like Trey Mann being re-signed, Colin Sexton, Spencer Dinwiddie, Pat Connaughton, Mason Plumlee, all of the above, in case one of those starters do go down with injury, the Hornets have put themselves in a much better position in terms of depth coming in off the bench. Now, Charles Lee has made it clear all summer how much happier he is with this roster. He said it in several different places. But the one that comes back to me the most is his interview on WFNZ, where he went on to defend the centers that the Hornets have on the roster. Charles Lee does seem to be high on the centers that he's got in his rotation. We know he is high on Musa Diabate. He thinks he's got a lot of promise, especially with his rebounding ability and his youth and his young age to develop offensively as well. Those are problems that can be fixed. So it's going to be important for him to develop and Charles Lee to keep his confidence in Musa Diabate and the other two guys he has behind him as well. So getting the Hornets turned around is not an easy task. It's something that we have been trying to do. I've heard it say over and over again for the 32 years that I've been alive, has been this team is going to get it figured out. We're turning it around. We're rebuilding, yada, yada, yada. So it's not an easy task, but Charles Lee feels like he has been put in the right place to at least begin that process here in year 2. As I've told you, I trust Charles Lee. I think he is the right man for the job. And so going forward, it should be very interesting to watch how he handles this team and continues to develop each and every one around him. Now, we told you we'd talk about a one-word expectation for this 25-26 season. It's a very intriguing one in Charlotte. There's some hype around this team. There's some hype around the young rookies. There's some excitement about who has been brought in terms of Colin Sexton and Spencer Dinwiddie and Pat Connaughton, and what, not necessarily that they're exciting names, but what they can do to benefit the organization going forwards has given some excitement as well. This is by far the best talent LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller have had put around them together. And then there has been some added proven veteran voices in that locker room, Mason Plumlee, Pat Connaughton, as well, to kind of help bring those young guys along, get their feet underneath of them into the NBA. Now, if you had to put the expectations for this season into just one word, what word might you use? Owen O'Connor, writer over at Sports Illustrated, thinks that the word he would use is growth. He thinks that's going to be the key to see coming out of this Hornets season going forwards. I think that's a great expectation for the Hornets. Growth and development obviously are things we have talked about all season long. We know about the youth. We know about the steps that Charlotte needs to take to get where they want to be and become a contender here in the Eastern Conference. On paper, that should be an easily accomplishable goal. We know that Charlotte has gotten much better if you just look at their roster from top to bottom than they were last year, but of course the game is not played on paper, so they're going to have to show it on the court as well. They've added depth, they've added youth, they have they have returning players who understand the Hornets system and have had a year of familiarity with Charles Lee. Things are starting to fall into place for the Hornets to have that growth, to have that development, and to get themselves where they want to go going forwards, which it could be a myriad of places. We've talked at length about where they want to go this season and how getting into the play-in in what is a rundown Eastern Conference would be big steps going forwards. That would be showing the growth that we're talking about as well. So there are things that can be done for this Hornets team to show growth, to show steps forwards. Making the play-in would be one of them. Not making the play-in would not mean that there has not been growth, obviously. Anything really above 19 wins would be proof of growth. But if they could get around that 30-win mark, if they could sneak into the play-in spot or even into a playoff spot without making the play-in, that would be beyond good news for the Hornets, and it would certainly show that Charles Lee and company are serious about growth and about development and about moving this team forwards into the right spot. One of the guys that's going to have to help them do that and propel them into the future is going to be Musa Diabate. The Hornets, it is coming out recently that they are higher on him than we originally thought. It has started to be to come out that the Hornets have turned down some trade requests for Musa Diabate. We've heard it again from straight from Charles Lee's mouth, that he trusts in Musa, that he believes he can start at the 5 in this league. Of times, of course, that sounded like it was just coach speak, like he's the guy on the roster, you know you have to say good things about him, but it's starting to come out that may not be 100% the case. There may be more belief in Musa than actually just coach speak coming out of Charles Lee's mouth. It's been talked about recently, it's come out that there has been trade talks denied, turned down by the Hornets for Musa Diabate. Richie Randall of the Buzzbeat podcast has confirmed in the recent weeks that Charlotte received trade offers for Moose last year, but turned them down because of the promise, because of the excitement they have about Diabate and the impact they think he can have on this team going forward. We know that I'm very high on Musa. I think he's got a lot of promise. I love his upside. I think he's going to become a better offensive player in the league and show a lot of promise to this organization going forwards. And what we're starting to find out proves that the Hornets are a little bit higher on him than we thought as well. Now, as we get closer to training camp, closer to the regular season, we'll know that Musa will have the opportunity to prove them right or wrong on the floor. He is going to have to play a lot of minutes this year. If for some reason he does not get that starting role, it will still be a crucial role. He'll play off the bench. He'll play the majority of the minutes, whether it be the starter or not. There's no way Mason Plumlee can play more minutes than Musa Diabate. He just can't hold up that long at this age. So no matter what, off the bench or starting, Moose has a lot of chances this year to prove the Hornets right in trusting him, to prove that they were correct in believing in him and keeping him, as he is going to grow and develop and potentially become a long-term starting center here in the NBA, something I think he is capable of doing, something I think he can do with the right amount of time, with the right amount of development, and with a guy like Charles Lee in his corner helping bring him along the entirety of the way. Now, if the Hornets are right and Musa proves them wrong, proves them correct that he can be a long-term starting center in the NBA, then the future looks even brighter here in the Queen City, as they won't have to worry about going out next year or in the offseason at the trade deadline, whatever it may be, and finding that center, as they will already have had theirs, and Musa will be that guy long-term. So that, again, adds some promise for the Hornets, but it is something we're going to have to keep an eye on as training camp progresses, the regular season unfolds, and we watch Musa and his development grow and what he is or is not able to do on the Hornets floor. That, of course, on Hornets Daily. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll bring it all right to you as soon as we can. That is going to do it for today's show, folks. Thanks, as always, for watching along with us. If you haven't already, remember, smash that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow with a brand new episode of Hornets Daily.